Okay, so Cami, whenever you're ready.
Hi, let me try sharing my screen real quick. But I want to make sure this is like done correctly. Do. Oop. Oh, well, let me do this. Okay. Um, and then can I drag it? Is this like working?
Yes.
So you see like a portion of my screen that is like the presentation.
I see three pictures of who
Okay.
I think is One Direction.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
I
great.
know that only because I recognize Harry Styles.
Yeah, as it goes. Okay, then I guess I will begin. As you can see, today I will be talking about my fan experience regarding One Direction. I've had a very long history with One Direction, but I'll mainly be focusing on kind of the peak of my phase, which is about 2015 to 2017. So that is my freshman year of high school to my junior year of high school. Um, I think before we get started, it's important to first give context about myself in kind of two different lenses. So the first one being I had originally heard of One Direction back in 2011, 2012. So that was in the fourth grade for me. This was just kind of the start of their success. But also, it was a terrifying time to be a young girl with young girl interests. And I guess it still is, but being a fourth grader, like a fourth grade girl who liked One Direction, is very, very dangerous because you become a target to be made fun of a lot. And as a result, I ended up being more of a closeted fan at this time, as my family convinced me over and over again that girls who liked One Direction were like stupid and dumb and like boy crazed, and I was very determined to not be stupid and dumb and boy crazed. The second important context about myself is that my friends would describe me as a quirky person, but not quirky in the sense that my interests are quirky, but rather my interests are mainstream. It's just the degree to which I take these interests is kind of off and not and unusual. Um, and so I've been very online all my life. I've been on social media and like the internet since the age of 3. And so that has obviously influenced the way I kind of conduct myself and influenced a lot of my personality growing up with the internet. And so I think that's just something to keep in mind. Um, Now that those two things are out of the way, we can really get into it now. So, like I said, I was in my freshman year of high school around this time. So, in my freshman year of high school, I was introduced to Tumblr and social justice, or as much social justice as a social media platform can teach you. And I realized there was a lot of internalized misogyny I had to unpack from my like earlier years growing up. And so I realized it's probably smart to try and kind of like reclaim a lot of the interests I felt like I wasn't allowed to like because I was a girl. Um, in 2015, I was just entering high school, so I was a very super awkward, self-conscious kid at this time. I ate the majority of my lunches in the girls' locker room with my one other friend I had, but online I was living this completely other life. I had been using Tumblr around a year at that point, and I had kind of grasped the platform pretty well. And I was secretly running a Panic at the Disco fan blog with about 8,000 followers on it. Um, and so I originally got into One Direction because I noticed that there was a lot of overlap between our two fandoms, and a lot of my friends would reblog things related to One Direction. So I eventually caved and I started listening to them. It took, I'd say, about a week for me to become a fan. Since I'd gone down like the fandom rabbit hole in the past, it was a very, very similar process to discovering a new band as it was for Panic for me. It started with the music, which I thought was incredibly good, and then I expanded it to listening to their entire discography before I wanted more, and I started watching live performances. I thought they were incredibly talented, and I started watching interviews, and they were so funny and charming, and I loved the chemistry that they had. And then it went deeper to what I like to describe as the last cycle of hell, where I started to actually create a Tumblr blog dedicated to them and to talk and meet new people who also liked One Direction. But also I started getting involved with like reading fan fiction and discovering ships for them, and like studying lore and fan theories and conspiracy theories, which actually is a huge thing in One Direction. I quickly realized, though, that despite the very similar process to becoming a fan of One Direction, the fandoms themselves were very, very different. One thing that jumped out to me in particular was that a lot of Panic at the Disco was smaller because the band had kind of already had its peak and high, and a lot of the history that a lot of people focused on in terms of lore and shipping and theories and all that already happened in the past. Whereas with One Direction, it was happening now. And so that means a lot of people were more active in the community, posting and creating and making content for it. I had to quickly learn certain terminologies, references, inside jokes, and jargon just to be able to communicate with people in the fandom. So I found myself no longer watching interviews and clips for entertainment, but for knowledge and information. So this image on screen right now is actually a screenshot from my One Direction Tumblr archive from December 2015. And as you can see, there's a lot of weird terminology here. So like, for example, you can see the word or the phrase Big Larry on the screen. So a Larry with an IE signifies a person who ships Harry and Louis together. And a Big Larry indicates that they are someone who is very popular in the sphere of Twitter, and they have a lot of respect. And if they had like a certain amount of followers and like were very popular, then they would instantly refer to themselves as like Big Larry, which I think is really funny. I won't go into too much detail since there's so much One Direction content, and this could go on for hours, but essentially I got very quickly sucked into this fandom very fast. I found my blog growing very rapidly, quickly jumping to like 3,000 followers under 4 months. And I was heavily involved in the fandom. I was writing fan fiction, I was reading fan fiction, I was making Tumblr edits via Photoshop, and I was just like becoming kind of like a head, not a head, but an important person in the community, in that I was joining Tumblr groups and Kik networks and all that, and I was actually making friends within the fandom. So moving on to the analysis part of this, I think it was really, really interesting to have to step back and evaluate why one of the most like famous bands in the world played such a large role in my life. And when I kind of evaluated it under the needs that we had talked about in the beginning of class, it became evident to me that in a way, One Direction fulfilled all those things for me. So it started at first with an entertainment perspective. One Direction was a welcome distraction during the tumultuous time and confusing time that is your freshman year of high school. And they were kind of a source of fun and happiness for me, and it helped me forget about how boring school was, really. Then as I started to fall more into the fandom, I needed to, utilize this media as information, and it was for information seeking, since I needed to be able to communicate with other people in the fandom using these specific terminologies that they had introduced to me. And then as I started to become more integrated with the fandom, it turned into more social integration and interaction. One Direction definitely gave me a social life and group outside of the mediocre life I had at school. I was constantly astounded by the quality of art and writing and content my friends would generate, and they really inspired me. I'm actually still friends with a lot of people to this day. I've met up with a couple of them in person. I've gone to Disneyland with one of them. There's still a great community that provides me a lot of support. But really, I think the most profound effect falls under the personal identity category. On a deeper level, One Direction was originally something I felt like I wasn't allowed to openly like, or else it would suggest something about my intelligence, or just suggest something about who I was as a person. But being allowed to come back to One Direction and being allowed to openly like it again and find so many other intelligent and accomplished people in the fandom helped me rid myself of that internalized misogyny I kind of carried with me. There was something very empowering in liking One Direction, showing me that humans possess such duality of being able to like girly things and simultaneously be accomplished and intelligent. And it helped me realize really that I should love things unabashedly and as passionately as possible without fear of judgment. Liking One Direction actually led me to eventually starting to enjoy things I originally thought I wasn't allowed to, aside from One Direction, but also I got back into makeup and fashion, and overall just being a very soft and vulnerable person. In summary, One Direction is one of my most important, what I like to call comfort medias. I would watch performances after bad days of school. I had a poster above my desk that said, "Do it for the boys," that I would look at every single time I was struggling in school. If I ever wanted to skip a meal because I was self-conscious about my weight or my appearance, I would think about how Liam or Louis or really any of the boys would want me to eat and take care of myself, and that actually worked. Yeah, so I guess the message of it all is that One Direction came at such a very important time in my life, when I had extremely low self-esteem and I had a lot of difficulty in understanding who I was and who I wanted to be. And through the fandom, I was able to realize that, you know, my work and my content and the content that I generated was valued, and that there were people out there who thought I was funny and worth a following and worth talking to. And really, this band helped give me the confidence to be who I am to this day, and I am forever grateful for that. Thank you.
Okay, so